Hey, welcome to Growing a Fruitful Brand, where we discuss how to create and grow a brand that makes the world a better place for you, your customers, and your employees. I'm Ben Luters, founder and art director of Fruitful Design and Strategy, and on this episode, my co-host, Raj Lula, interviews our longtime client and friend, Autumn Pruitt. Along with her husband, Luke, Autumn founded Hardy Coffee Co., an Omaha-based coffee roaster with 4 thriving coffee shop locations all across the metro area. Our first office was actually located right above the Benson Hardy Coffee Shop, and I'm proud to say that I was the first paying customer at that location. I ordered a traditional cappuccino, and it was delightful. We helped brand Hardy many years ago and have worked with them on packaging, merch, and signage projects ever since. In this conversation, Autumn and Raj take a little trip down memory lane together and also explore what it's like being a local coffee company trying to differentiate themselves from the big coffee brands like Starbucks. How do you make sure that your customer experience stays consistent across all of your different locations? And how can constraints actually drive your innovation? I hope Autumn's story of local excellence and approachability inspires you on your own business journey.
Autumn, thanks for joining us on Growing a Fruitful Brand.
Raj, so good to be here.
We've known each other for a long time, and back when we met, you were in high school. I had just started college.
Just a couple years ago, right?
It feels like it.
Yeah.
And so at that time, you obviously were in school. We were both in school, and then I left town and then came back, and you were running a bakery that has kind of bloomed into a series of successful coffee shops. So can you just kind of tell us that story? How did that come about from, going off to college to coming back and starting a bakery and then a coffee shop? How'd that all go?
Slowly and bumpily, but well. I went to school in East Tennessee and moved back to the Omaha area and started working in a bakery because I thought it would be a really good idea to make sure that I actually liked doing the thing instead of just starting my own business. And so, worked in the industry for about a year before I had the opportunity to buy that shop from the previous owner. And jumped in with both feet. I was my only employee for the first bit and then started building a really great team of people. At the time, we were just subleasing the bakery from what was then Aroma's Coffee House. But about a year and a half later, we had the chance to buy the coffee shop as well. And it felt like this really great opportunity to say, I hear baked goods and coffee go well together. What would it look like if we could really help control the customer experience for both sides of that building? And so that began my journey as a coffee professional. Opened a second location in the Benson neighborhood about a year after that. Started roasting in 2015 and opened another location in North Omaha about 4 years ago. And most recently opened a drive-through location, which was a whole different ball of wax, as they say. So yeah, that's the journey in a nutshell. So yeah, it's about, we're coming up on 13 years in February, which blows my ever-loving mind when I think about it a year at a time. But altogether, it's gone pretty fast. Yeah.
You experienced something that not a lot of brands do, but is not terribly uncommon in some ways. So you started with 2 brands, which is the unusual part. But I would say it's not as unusual to inherit a business from a parent or, to take over from a founder or whatever, and then kind of be stuck with I don't know if this feels completely like us. I don't know how married we are to it. Now we're juggling 2 brands. So,
and then we threw in a third.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Even before Benson, right? Uh-huh. So tell us about that. Starting a third brand. What was that?
So we started Bliss Old Market Bakery, and then we purchased Aroma's Coffee House, and then we started roasting under the brand Hardy Coffee Company in 2015. And internally, it felt like that all made sense. Like we knew who was in charge of what and who supplied products where. But every time we talked to a customer about it, their eyes just immediately glazed over. And so we started taking note of that to try and figure out how to clarify our messaging to make sure that we didn't lose people before we ever had the chance to sell to them.
So you're opening the second shop in Benson, and that's kind of where Fruitful and Hardy Coffee Company started to grow up together because we were in that same building.
Literally neighbors.
Yep. Yeah. And so what was the process of kind of deciding on what that second shop would be called, because of course we don't want to carry the Bliss Aroma Hearty confusion into a new neighborhood. How did you go through that process of deciding what the dominant brand would be and therefore the brand that would live on?
Yeah, so we actually did carry the chaos into another location. Both Benson and downtown were Aroma's Coffee House for the longest time, and we were roasting under the name Hearty Coffee Company from another location.
Okay.
And initially the idea was to say, like, we know we want to roast for our own shops, but we also want to wholesale to future clients. And so we worry that people might not be interested in buying directly from competition. And so the idea initially when we worked with Fruitful is like, how do we create a different brand that we can have our roasting expertise, like that can still be on the packaging, but the actual physical locations are a different brand. And so again, it all made sense internally until you started talking to actual people. And we made the decision to pick a brand, to pick a horse, to say, like, this is the one that's going to carry the entirety of who we are. Every location, every piece of the business. Let's clarify that messaging. And so Hearty Coffee Company was what we chose. Hearty is my maiden name, and so that meant a lot to me personally, the way that my parents had helped invest in and start the business. By invest in, I mean blood, sweat, and tears invest in. And so that meant a lot to me, but it's a real word too. And it's one that's easy to pronounce. It's one that I think resonates with people in the Midwest. We're sturdy, we're like resilient, and we are okay doing hard things. So. Yeah,
and I remember the initial brand rollout video that had, the bison or buffalo in it, and talking about that, sort of the hardiness of Midwesterners, the willingness to go out in sub-freezing temperatures to get a cup of coffee.
Even today.
To start your day, including today, yes. You watch, though, when this comes out a month from now, it'll be, 75 because
Speak that
that's
into
Nebraska.
existence.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
But yeah, so you start to establish the permanence of this brand, and it sort of begins to take everything else over. And so one thing I really like about your story is that you put the customer first in all of this. It's like, it's fine that we had it all figured out our way, but when the customer's confused, nobody's really winning at that point. So kudos on that. I think that was a really great move. And now going on 4 shops, right?
We have 4 locations plus our bakery and roasting lab.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then you have coffee in many other locations too, right? About how many shops do you think are carrying, or other businesses carrying?
Yeah, we have roughly 40 wholesale accounts. And so those are different businesses, restaurants, coffee shops, just organizations that are serving our coffee. And we always say that we want to provide excellent coffee and the support to serve it well. So it's not just the product, but we come alongside for training and consultation too, to make sure that they feel great serving a great product.
Yeah. So you got a clear brand together and 4 shops, and then 10 times that amount in people who are actually carrying the beans as well and serving coffee in the Hearty way. That must be really just satisfying to see that brand at this point now.
Yeah, if I take enough time to sit and think about it, it really helps. But we have an incredible team of people that have worked alongside each other every step of the way. I feel like it's very common to hear right now that you just can't find good help. You know, like that's the mantra, especially in the food and beverage industry. It feels like there's signs on every door about how you just can't find good help. And that may be true for other people, but that has not been my experience. Yeah. Like, we have an incredible staff of people that have been with us for years and years, people that are only there for a short season. But I think regardless, it's people that want to do a great job, that are excited to work for a small business, that also put the customer first. And it's been so much better to do it with a team than by myself. So it's funny when you have that hindsight.
Yeah. Well, and I think that speaks to your brand being more than just an external marketing, tool, that you've really built that brand internally as well. It's not just great coffee. It's not just a great environment to consume that coffee and those baked goods in. It's also, a great place to work. And, employment or brands have those facets. It's the consumer experience and the employee experience. And you've cultivated that well. So
we haven't by no means arrived. We still have
for sure.
all sorts of goals and moving that way. But yeah, I think it's, as an owner operator, you want to build a place that you want to work in.
You want to be.
Thankful for a team of people that make that true.
Yeah. So you came back from college, wanted to be in the food and beverage space.
Yes.
And, you entered an industry where there are some giants.
Couple.
a big green one, in fact. So, what are some of the challenges of entering a space like coffee, where there's Starbucks and, you're trying to build a brand where there's already a really dominant player there?
Yeah, I think there's hard things that go along with that. I think one of them is, quite honestly, price point. It's one of those things where regardless how much better your product may be, like the care that you put into it or the quality of ingredients, like you can't charge much more than what the giant is charging. People have come to expect that a latte costs about this much, and you have a little bit of wiggle room, but not much. And so to say, like, we either need to figure out how to be more efficient in other areas, or we need to figure out how to sell more than Starbucks. And so we decide, and I think just to figure out what your North Star is, to say, like, even if we have a smaller profit margin, I'm not going to compromise on quality. And so these are the areas that we'll figure out and be creative around.
Yeah. So you move into that space and you're trying to build a brand and there are these dominant players. Are there any advantages? It seems kind of counterintuitive, but are there any advantages that small businesses have over entrenched players like that?
Yes. I would say, and it might be the only advantage, is just the ability to change direction quickly. And I think that the flexibility that comes with being small has really been highlighted in the last 3 years, but it's always been true. And so, it's one of those funny things where it feels like we keep getting better at working ahead. We all through COVID, we started doing a lot of gift boxes and really updating our online store with fun offerings and doing more events. And so we realized, okay, if we're going to do this, then we need to make sure that we're at least 2 months out to make sure our team's on the same page and we get the messaging right. But we could do it on a Tuesday and still have it fulfilled on a Saturday if we really had to. We could make it happen with our team.
That doesn't mean call her and ask her to do that, just in case you're wondering.
But you think of Starbucks, it's a global company, and I can't even imagine if they were to push out a new product, how much time it takes to get the supply chain in shape, to make sure that they have all the ingredients, to make sure that they have the right colored cups, to make sure that they are doing everything to get multiple continents on the same page for what that rollout looks like. It blows my mind. And so I think that the agility of small is an advantage that we have figured out.
Along those lines, recently you had a promotion that you did over Thanksgiving, over Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, that kind of came together in that way. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think Small Business Saturday is such a lovely idea. It's this idea to say, you got Thanksgiving, you got Black Friday. We're giving so much attention to large box stores. Let's make sure we give a day to the small guys. Yeah. I love that. I wish it could be in March instead of the weekend after Thanksgiving. We've just had our Super Bowl in the bakery with the hundreds of pies, and then you're trying to be creative and be present, and you've already hosted your family at your house all week too. And so it's a funny thing that we are grateful for, but it somehow catches us off guard every single year. And I had that experience this year where it was 2 months out, we thought about it, and then it just kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And it was literally the week before Small Business Saturday. And I was on a call with a friend of mine. I was like, I've missed it. I've missed the window. We don't have time to get it over the finish line. And she said, no, you haven't. It's still in the future. So in the next 30 minutes, we brainstormed these ideas. I had already had a couple ideas in mind. And so we just fleshed it out to say we could do this or that or these things together. And so we came up with the idea to do family pictures at our shops on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And so for us, it was an opportunity to invite people in. We showcased a couple of different menu items that were going to be on our holiday menu. But mostly it was the opportunity to partner with local photographers to create a space and experience for our customers that they also were probably too busy to set up on their own. And so it came together last minute, but it was so rewarding. And it was one of those reminders to say, don't count yourself out just because
Yeah.
it's not necessarily in the same timeline that you would prefer. I think that to remember the one advantage of being a small business is to be creative on a whim and figure out how to make it happen.
Well, another advantage you have is that you have that local network.
Okay, 2 advantages. You're right. I like that. Keep going.
Because, just having photographers who will take your call and, even knowing who to reach out to or who to reach out to who might know somebody else. I would argue that there are a lot of Omaha creative businesses whose first office was probably Hardy Coffee Company.
Same.
And, but those relationships are another huge part of being a local business,
Yeah.
being a small business as well.
You're right. And we talk a lot of our 3 staples at Hardy Coffee are we want to be excellent, local, and approachable. And so I think that the way that whole event came together was a reminder of that's what we're striving for. And I think customers sniff it out if you say those things, but you don't demonstrate them. There's a real desire for authenticity in the human spirit, but it feels like especially right now. And so I think to say, okay, we're local, that means we're going to find local people to partner with. We're going to pay them real money, and we're going to figure out a way to also make your local Thanksgiving really special.
Yeah. I'd love to dig into those things just a little bit with you because, those 3 pillars of your brand. Excellence, there's some obviousness to that, right? Serve great coffee, serve great baked goods. Is there anything else in the area of excellence that you really kind of focus on as a team?
I think consistency is one of those things.
Yeah,
So
100%.
You can have the best ingredients and product in the world, but if you don't execute it every time, then it doesn't matter. Customers don't know that they can trust you. They don't know if they need to wait for the right barista to be on shift before they show up.
Yep.
And people will choose a lesser product often
Yeah.
if they know that it's consistent.
Yeah.
And so we drive really hard for that, to say, how do we make sure that we're following the recipes, that the way that we're making things is the same on a Monday as it is on a Friday, and that we aren't going to apologize for those expectations.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So excellent is one. Local, you talked a little bit about. In what other ways are you local?
For one thing, I am from Omaha. And so I think there's this piece to say, our owners, Luke and I, my husband is Luke. We are both from the Omaha area, and it just feels like when we were trying to figure out exactly where we wanted to open a shop, we thought about everywhere but here at first. And then there was this opportunity to say, I don't know that Portland needs another coffee shop. I think that there's the opportunity to really move the needle, to create physical space in a community that we already know and love, and then to grow up together with other creatives in the process.
I like that you mentioned that, growing up with other creatives, because, Sharon over at Arbor Street Studios originally was painting signs.
She was originally a Benson shop manager at Hardy. Did you know that?
We seen her behind the counter. We spent a lot of time down in Benson. There's Sharon. I know that other artists have come out of actually working at Hardy.
So many.
And then, like I mentioned, our office originally was right above Hardy, then right behind Hardy, right next to. We've had a few, even in the same building, and we kind of joked that we would have to sometimes send the intern next door to grab the coffee, because otherwise Ben would run into every artist that he knew and come back 2 hours later with a bunch of ideas, but
not a lot of work.
It's a little hard to get stuff done when it's so full of creatives, which is, but it's a wonderful reputation. And that goes to approachable too. So what do you do? Starbucks kind of has their thing about being the third place, the public living room. What's Hardy's kind of take on being approachable?
We are coffee professionals, and so it's very important for us to know our craft. I just came from a 2-hour training with our lead roaster that we do every other week with our shop managers. We're working on sensory development, and we're always learning our lineup better, and we're understanding all of the elements that make a great cup of coffee. But when somebody walks in the door, we never want them to feel like they aren't cool enough to be in one of our shops. And so we need to have all the answers, but we need to be smart enough to know whether or not a customer wants them. And so I think for us, the approachability is to say, we're uncompromising on the quality, but we need to be a place where everybody feels welcome. And I think that that's a tension that we manage. It's never going to be one that it's never going to be a problem we solve. It's this thing to say like, these things both matter and they're going to be in conflict with each other, but we need to hire people that understand when to lean in and when to give people space and how to keep learning new things without cramming them down someone else's throat.
It's like good enough for coffee snobs, but you don't have to be one to enjoy our coffee.
That's a great tagline. I love that. Hearty coffee.
That's great. And that is really important because I think as soon as you said that, there were shops, here and in other cities that I've walked into and gone, oh my gosh, my mustache isn't waxed. I don't belong here.
Same. Oh my gosh.
I didn't ride my unicycle in here. I don't,
And I think like those three things for us, excellent, local, and approachable. It's a three-legged stool to say like it would be so easy to be approachable and local, but not excellent, or to be excellent and local, but not approachable. Yeah. And so we're trying really hard to do all three.
But what a great combination of things that's going back to what we originally talked about. It's all in the service of the customer because, like you said, if it's local and approachable but not excellent, then the customer doesn't have a good experience. Yeah. I think that's one of the main downfalls of local coffee shops. You walk into it and it smells of stale milk for whatever reason, and and the tables aren't wiped down and that kind of stuff. And it's like, I don't necessarily want to support the big guy, but I don't want a dirty table either. Yeah. And so
great customer service starts with a great product.
Yeah.
And everything else flows from there. And so it doesn't matter if you smile at the person and greet them so warmly, but then you serve them something terrible. Then the customer says, that was a really nice person.
Yeah.
But they don't say, what a great company. Yeah. But if you have a great product that is then served by an enthusiastic person that sees you and takes care of that process, like it's a completely different experience.
Yeah, it's almost sociopathic to like smile while handing somebody something subpar. It's just
but so much of the time you don't have control over it. So much of the time the person at the counter wasn't responsible for making it, and then they still have the burden of trying to pretend as though it's great. And so I just think that we do our very best to get rid of that tension. Yeah.
This is a masterclass in branding and business, by the way, because, those friction points, those tension points, it doesn't matter if you're in coffee or IT or whatever. That is what makes a difference between a repeat customer and not. And you can take that lesson to any service-based industry, any product-based industry as well. So we talked about, the advantages that you have against a bigger brand. How do you stand out against a bigger brand? Is there anything you've done to, kind of position yourself so that people pay attention?
I think a lot of it is those like grassroots, think of it on a Tuesday marketing ideas where you say, like we had no budget when we started, much less any marketing budget in 2010. And so every time that we came up with a new idea, we thought like, what's the free way to tell people about this? And it's one of those things where, I think it was Craig Rochelle. I heard a talk he did a couple years ago where he talked about like, instead of thinking outside the box, what does it look like to think inside the box? And the idea that constraints actually drive innovation. They drive creativity. Where if you have a budget to get whatever billboard you want to put a commercial on any television channel you can access, then I think you just spend the money and you don't necessarily get the most out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Where I think for us, because we were forced to be creative, we really created relationships and true customer loyalty that has stood the test of time.
Sometimes those constraints of not having the budget or even not knowing what to do, it makes you be creative. Okay, what's the highest impact thing that we can do for the smallest investment?
And it's interesting. I mean, we have the type of business where the product really does speak for itself in a lot of ways. And so if I have the choice between running a Facebook campaign, is that what that's called?
Yeah.
Okay. Or dropping samples off to the fire station to say like, we're so glad that you're in our neighborhood and we just had these extra cookies today. Would you like them? Like, you're still spending something. It's like the cost of that product. It's the cost to make it, but you're actually connecting with real humans and you're letting them literally have a taste of what you do.
Yeah.
And for us, that's just been like anything that's word of mouth or acts like word of mouth is such a better fit for us to be able to grow the brand. And I think our membership program is a huge piece of that too. That's something that we started, good grief, 7 years ago. I mean, so I'm looking at you to
because I was there.
Because you were there. We came like you came at the time. You had recently been working at Barnes and Noble. Am I making this up?
It was just a couple of years after, yeah.
And so they had a membership program, and you were like, I have an idea, and I listened because that's what you do, and nice people with good ideas share them with you. But it was the idea to say, like, what would it look like if you were to invite loyal customers into a membership group where they would pay something up front, but you would be able to give them that value back in product over the course of a year. And for us, it solves so many problems to say our cash flow in January is just always tragic. It's right after the holidays, everyone's on a new budget and they're on a new diet and it's cold outside. And so like, how do you front load some of those customer interactions in January that then take place throughout the rest of the year? And so at this point, our membership program, it's a $75 investment, but customers get a free drink every single month, another one for their birthday. They get 15% off of every purchase when they come in, online or in store. They get free coffee refills when they're in the shops. And so it's this way that we really signal to each other like, oh, you're a regular and we're so glad you're here. And thank you for keeping our doors open these last almost 13 years.
Yeah. And, the way that's, priced and valued, people can do that math really quickly because it's like, okay, well, I mean, I'd normally spend $5-ish on a cup of coffee anyway. So just those 12 free ones right there, that's $60 off of that 75.
I get 13 for your birthday.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So now we're up to at least $65. And if you have the fancy stuff in the coffee on top of that, you might be even closer to breaking even. But then the 15% on top of that, all of those extra things, and I know that there's times you do exclusive events, tastings, all those things. You get to support a local coffee shop, but you're not, it's not a charity. You get something out of it and you really belong somewhere. I've seen people post their, year after year keychains all lined up. And it's so satisfying to see that, it's not just a purchase. It's not just an impulse buy. It's something that people look forward to. It's a sense of community. And you learn the baristas' names, they learn your kids' names, and it's a place of belonging. It really becomes that place that you can return to.
I would say, okay, I thought of a third advantage of being a small business.
Okay.
I imagine that the CEO of a very large corporation does not have a lot of interactions with the actual customers anymore.
Yeah.
And for me, like I still run all of the social media. I still like send out the newsletter. I still like my husband is behind the bar at every shop every week. It's this opportunity to say like, okay, a lot of the really pivotal decisions we made early on in the business were because we were listening to our customers. And we don't want to lose track of that. Yeah. And so I think the bigger you get, you have the opportunity to only hear the things you want to hear or only hear the things that people want you to hear. And I think that it's as hard as it is to see a negative review or as complicated as it is to keep track of all of your regulars. It's so helpful and it's so important. And honestly, that's also just the much more rewarding part of the job. And so I think that still seeing a lot of those direct messages and being responsible for communicating to a lot of people, like that keeps you grounded and it helps you continue to innovate.
Yeah.
And so having a database of our members and people that we're reaching out to consistently, like that's just been a really great way to test ideas and to say, what do you think about this? If we were to do this, what would you say? And I think we should do even more of that in the coming year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something we've been talking about in our 2023 predictions is that I think local is going to be really big this year because...
You heard it here first, folks.
Local events, people pulled back on their kind of conference budgets, those types of things. And so those local gatherings, those local routines are going to be all that more important when people are maybe traveling a little less or certainly traveling for business a little bit less and need that coffee shop to go to or, just need that break to reset. And, a great coffee shop is a wonderful place to do that.
Yeah. I always have a little bit of a beef with people that do like budgeting tools because my product is always like the first on the chopping block. They're like, for the cost of 4 coffees, you could do this. And I'm like, hey, back off. Like we're offering so much more than the product. Like you get rent a table all day long for a $3 brewed coffee if you'd like. Dave Ramsey, get with it, man.
Calling them all out here. So the membership program, it's so good to see that surviving and thriving and really helping. I'll bet it would be fun, even for some of your customers to hear how important that is to you.
Gosh.
And the interest has grown year over year. I saw somebody on, I think it was LinkedIn, say, I'm going to buy my first one this year. So whoever that was, hopefully you did. If not, there's still time.
Well, and a huge piece of that is that we keep tweaking it too.
Yes,
and so a good friend of ours 2 years ago, built an app for the membership program, where before it was a very grubby piece of paper that you kept in your wallet. Like by the time the year was up, this punch card was spent. And to say how do we digitize this? How do we make sure that it's not just for the calendar year, but you get 12 full months whenever you purchase? It's this process to say, I don't know how to build an app. I could probably figure it out if I had lots of time, but we know people that can get there much faster. And so it's a guy that's on our team now, and he was able to help really thrust that into this century, which was helpful.
I think that's such a great point as well for building a brand, is that you don't have to have it perfect the first time you do it.
Sweet mercy. Yeah.
And in fact, I would argue that it's better not to have it perfect before you launch it, because then you have the opportunity to get feedback from your customers and go, hey, we don't really like the grubby punch card. Okay, cool. It's something else this next year, or we'll laminate it. But then you also, you have it done, and it's making revenue for itself to help invest in itself, as opposed to being paralyzed by perfection or the illusion of perfection. You probably wouldn't have known what app to build if you just, we definitely need an app because that's the way the big guy does it. You wouldn't have known what all to put into it. You would have wasted a lot of money getting there and had something this customer still wanted tweaks on because you didn't ask them before you launched it. So whatever anybody is doing, starting a business, this is one of the things I tell people. I get asked all the time about how to start a creative business. And some of it is just launch. You're not going to have it all perfect. You're not going to have all of your invoicing system down and your accounting systems and all those things. You should get them right. Don't get me wrong, but you should have a bias towards action and then refine as you go, because that's really how you get started in building a brand. If you wait for perfect to come along or for it to arrive at perfect, she's 13 years in here and saying we still want to improve. That's the spirit of an entrepreneur.
Oh, and it's always so humbling to look back at posts from, it felt like social media was pretty new when we were using it 13 years ago. And we were cutting edge by posting pictures of whatever cookie we were decorating. But to see the progress that the product has made over the years, it's just so much better.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't made those first cookies, we would have never made it to this batch.
Right.
And so I think it's just that reminder of you got to set your ego aside, make sure it's good, but know that it's going to keep getting better.
Yeah.
If you care, as long as you keep showing up.
Yeah. Speaking of that, what are some of the keys to surviving and thriving? The restaurant and food industry is difficult. You mentioned consistency earlier. I know that's a huge one. What are some of the other things that you mentioned that you teach other people how to run great coffee shops? What are some of the kinds of things that you teach?
Just to get the fundamentals right, you have, for any business, you have to know your numbers. You have to be able to know what months are hard and how to prepare for that and how to not get in over your head. And we barely avoided some disasters along the way to say whew, let's learn from that. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep improving. The improvement's not just in the sugar cookies. It's in every area of the business over the last 13 years. But I think having a really clear understanding of your numbers and then getting to the point sooner than I did to share those numbers with your team. I feel in a lot of ways it was It was COVID. It was we had a location that didn't make it, and that whole process was really hard, but eye-opening to say, okay, I can keep trying to like fix this on my own, or I can come to the table very open-handed with my team to say, this is where we're at, and this is where we're going without change, and this is where we need to go if it's going to make it. And it was another reminder of like, this is better with a team. Like, this is better. And it's awkward and it's embarrassing because you want to be a competent, confident leader. But all the people there would so much rather have the information. And the reality is, like, they have ideas, they have knowledge that I don't have. And so if you're able to open up that conversation, to be open-handed with the things you know and to be open-minded with the things you don't know, I think that it made a huge difference for our business.
So, so consistency, being willing to listen to others, bring your team in. Those are great things. And I really love, mastering the fundamentals. That is the thing that, again, we get asked a lot by, people who want to be creative professionals. How do you get started in business? And I always tell them that your love of the art will keep you good at art. You're always going to want to improve your brush strokes, or, learn how to do that thing in the computer, or get a better camera gear or whatever. But you're never going to sit down and go, it really just lights my fire to learn QuickBooks today. If you discipline yourself to do those things, your love of art will carry you into the rest. With coffee, you're always going to want to make a better cup of coffee, a better baked good. The recipes that started Bliss and then, were carried on into Hardy, I know some of them came from your own family, and it's generational, just a love of the food, and you're going to want to continue to get better at that on your own. But the dollars and cents, the training schedules, all of those things, those are the fundamentals that are so important to get right in building a good business.
Yeah. This is something that may be unpopular, but I think that, like, if you really love baking, don't start a bakery. Like, go work for a small business where you can do that full time. Because every small business desperately needs that person too. But don't start a business because you like a task. Start a business because you want to make an impact on the world, and to be able to do it in small creative ways using that thing that you love. But I mean, a lot of times people ask me, like, don't you miss baking? Like, don't you miss that? And I still am in the bakery for major holidays. Like, I'm in that space all the time, but I get to bake at home with my kids now. And then like when I'm at work, I get to do other things that help our bakers do that and help us sell to more people and help us partner with more wholesale accounts. And I think that, it's an unpopular opinion when everybody's like, just go do it. Well, don't do it if that's not what you should be doing. Like, there's so many different ways to do it well, but there are easier ways to make money.
Yeah.
Being an entrepreneur, there's so many easier ways to make money. So, like, don't do it unless that's like the only way you can imagine moving forward.
Yeah, that is so good, because beyond that, you talked so much about your team. You also have, these retail spaces, and when you jump into being an entrepreneur for the love of the craft alone, then you don't realize how many people are counting on you. Between a landlord who's keeping a shopping center alive, the staff that you end up having work for you, and if you fall down on those business fundamentals, then a lot of people get disappointed. It's not just your own dream and go, oh, I guess I just don't like baking as much anymore. It's like you end up hurting a lot of people. Owning a business is a sacred responsibility when there are people who are counting on you. As you've mentioned, you have your wholesale accounts, and you are now teaching other coffee shops how to be coffee shops. That's amazing.
Doing our level best. I think for me, it's just one of those moments where you're like, what have I learned? What do I wish somebody would have told me?
Yeah.
How could I have gotten from there to here so much faster and with less scar tissue? Like, how could that have happened? And so I think for us, people have asked us to franchise so many times. And that's just not the way that I plan to grow our business. But this is a way to say, like, we can be a wholesale partner. You don't have to have every piece of your business look like ours.
Yeah.
You can pick your own name and have your own interior design and be able to set your own menu. But if you would like some pointers on how to be successful selling specialty coffee, this is the playbook. Like, we can help in all of these different areas. Take it or leave it. But if you take it, I really think that you'll be able to be successful faster.
And that is huge, because we all know the statistics on businesses not making out of the first year, the first 2 years, the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And if you have somebody who's been doing this for 13 years, willing to give you their playbook, then even a really sizable investment in that makes a lot of sense. You know, we talked about this when we were doing some brand strategy for your consulting, where it's just like, how much would it have saved you to know what you know now? You know, it's like, even if you're just able to pay yourself, you know, and even a really modest salary of, you know, $50,000 or $60,000 moving into those first couple of years, then if you invest, you know, 5 figures in that training to avoid going 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, when you compound those, that's, you know, $50,000, $150,000, $250,000 that somebody gains by starting from second or third base, rather than, you know, starting from home, reinventing the wheel. Let's mix all the metaphors, but, you know, having to learn it all the hard way when somebody else has already done that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like I'm a very open book about the mistakes we've made, because I don't know. I just think there's no use pretending that it was easy, or that it didn't, that we don't still have our challenges. But I think our challenges now are better than they were before, because we keep learning, we keep changing, we keep adapting.
Well, if somebody is interested in starting a coffee shop, or just finding excellent, you know, baked goods and coffee, where can they find Hardy?
Yeah, so we have 4 locations. We have one in the Old Market area of Omaha, down on 11th and Jones. We have one in the Benson neighborhood, 60th Ave and Maple. One in North Omaha, 30th and Lake. We have a drive-through only on 144th and just off I-80, the Chalco area. And then you can always find us online. We're at hardycoffee.com. And so that's a great place to go if you're looking for something from the online store, or you're one of those people that says, I am interested in wholesale coffee. Like, you can always set up a consultation there, and we would love to talk to you.
You know, last time I was in your store, we picked up one of those, and this is not a paid promotion at all. It really is. This did happen. Picked one of those air escape containers that you have that keeps the coffee really fresh. And because I'm a much bigger fan of grinding the coffee ourselves at home and then storing it, but all the other containers, they were letting air in and coffee getting stale. And the interesting thing about that was that it was both had the cool Hardy Buffalo on it, and it was slightly cheaper than it was on Amazon. And I was like, I'm sold 100% right here.
Win-win is what we call that.
Yeah. So, and you know, all of your products that you have available online, all the great coffee merchandise and, you know, treats, definitely look them up. We enjoy them. Autumn is definitely going to be back with us as long as she says yes to this weird dog and pony show that we have here, because this is just the beginning of the wisdom that she has to share with business owners.
Look out, world.
And then we are also going to be doing some events in Omaha. I'm speaking it into existence now to help small business owners. Like I said, I think this is going to be the year of local. And so, you know, partnering with other organizations, these are the advantages that small businesses have. And we're going to make sure that people have access to the resources they need to make it through some weird and wild economic times. So
there will be coffee.
Yeah.
For the weird and wild times.
I think for the weird and wild times, you have to start with coffee for sure.
Honestly.
Autumn, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's so good to be here. Thanks, Raj.
Thanks for joining us today on Growing a Fruitful Brand. If you found today's show helpful, don't forget to subscribe and consider sharing it with someone who might also enjoy it. If you'd like to work with Fruitful on a branding, website, or messaging project of your own, you can always reach out on our website, fruitful.design. So until next time, don't forget to grow something good.